Okay, today we're going to be doing more volume and surface area. Today it's going to be on cones, cylinders, and spheres. So I'm going to do some of the odds on the left-hand side of today's worksheet. You can see where the writing is on the left. There's some cones down there, and at the bottom are the spheres. And then you guys are going to do the odds on the right-hand side, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, etc. Another thing I wanted to point out is I've written in some of the formulas on this video, but if you go here to the posting in Google Classroom, I've attached the geometry formulas sheet that you're going to have available to use during the assessments. And here in the middle, you see the cylinder, the sphere, the cone, and we're also going to practice a pyramid as the last prism that we're going to be doing. So anyways, that's there in the bin if you need access to it. All right, here we go. By the way, you're going to need a yellow calculator ready or your Desmos to be able to do some calculations in terms of pi and as a decimal. So we're going to be using those little arrow keys to get us both answers. All right, let's try this. So in the first one, notice that the formula has an R for radius and an H for height. And so when I look at the picture, do you see how sometimes we give you a full diameter instead of a radius? So if that's the case, like in your number 2 that you're about to go do, you have to take the diameter and split it in half, right? So if the whole diameter is 10, our radius is only going to be 5. So now we just go plug in. Sorry, let me use the same color here. So we're going to say pi times 5 squared times our height. And so here is our radius. And here is our height. So we just multiply that. 5 squared is 25. 25 times 3 is 75. So our first answer in terms of pi is 75 pi. Now notice we can't do 5 times 3 is 15, 15 squared. That would give us way too big of a number. We have to do the exponent first and then multiply by the 3. So 75 pi, and this is a volume, so that's going to be kilometers cubed. And then we're going to go put that into our calculator, take a minute to type that in, and get me the decimal version. You got it, 235.62. That's our decimal or approximate answer. And why did I round 6.1 to 6.2? Because it had a 9 after it. Okay, so here is our exact answer. Here is our approximate answer. And we move to the next one. Surface area formula is 2 pi r, that's the circumference, times the height, plus the 2 circles on the top and the bottom. So what we have here when we're talking about a cylinder is we have a top circle and a bottom circle. That's the 2 pi r squareds, because each one is a pi r squared as far as its area. And then why is this rectangle that's around it this 2 pi r h? Well, imagine if I unwrapped, like if this was a can and I unwrapped that wrapper off of it, can you imagine that it would be a big rectangle? Well, what would be the length and height, the length and width of that rectangle? Well, this would just be the height of the figure, but this length is the circumference of the whole top of the circle when I unwrap it. And so that's why over here we have 2 pi r, that's our length, times height, that's our width. And that's where that formula comes from. Anyways, let's go plug into it. And let me use blue. So I've got 2 times pi times the radius of 5 times the height, and then 2 times pi times the radius squared. So this is going to be 2 times 5, that's 10. 10 times 3, that's 30 pi. And this is going to be 5 squared, or 25 times 2, that's 50 pi. So our total is 80 pi. See if that makes sense to you. And then grab your conversion calculator and let's see the decimal version of that. You got it, 251.38. And this is going to be in kilometers squared because area is squared. All right, let's go do the next one. Notice in this one that they gave us the diameter. They gave us the radius directly. We don't have to do any taking half of anything. The radius is 2. So I go the same volume formula from above. Pi times radius squared times height. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. I'm going to get 20 pi feet cubed. Go ahead and put that into our calculator. And we get 62.83 feet cubed. By the way, I just noticed the worksheet says to round to the nearest tenth, and I like us to practice rounding to the nearest hundredth, so I'm going to change that up there. Okay, surface area, go plug into that one. So we've got 2 times pi times our radius of 2 times height, and then 2 times pi times the radius squared. So 2 times 5 is 10 times 2 is 20 pi. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 2 is 8 pi. 28 pi. Oh, I already just saw what I did wrong here. 28 pi feet squared. And then let's plug that into our calculator. $87.96 feet squared. Surface area is squared because area is squared and volume is cubed. Okay, so our next one, notice they gave us a full diameter again. So if the diameter is 2 times the radius, I have to divide the diameter by 2. And so you see that our radius is 8. You don't need to do this side diameter work. As long as you understand where it's coming from, you can just write that the radius is 8. Okay, so here we go again, plugging into our volume formula. Pi times radius squared times the height is going to be 64 times 5. That's 320 pi miles cubed. And then add a pi. 1005.31. Surface area is going to be that blue formula above. 2 times pi times the radius times the height plus 2 times pi times the radius squared. So again, just to kind of remind you where these came from, see how up top I highlighted. So my radius was 8, so I plug it in here and here. So see the radius plugged in here and here in the formula. And then our height gets plugged in at the front part right there. So 8 times 5 is 40. 40 times 2 is 80 pi. 8 squared is 64. 64 times 2 is 128 pi. So we get 208 pi miles squared. as our exact answer. And then 653.45 miles squared for the decimal answer. Okay, so far, all this work that we just did has been the formulas for cylinders. So if you can see, this top section is all cylinders. I'm just doing 3, and now I'd like you to do the evens on the other side. Here I go with cones. So notice the cone formula has a 1/3 in it because the volume is only filling up 1/3 of a cylinder. So we're just going to plug in 1/3 of pi times radius squared times the height of the cone. And then 2 squared is 4. 4 times 4 is 16 pi thirds. So that's my exact answer, kilometers cubed. And now I'm going to go plug this into a calculator. And I get 16.76. And this is cubed because it is the volume. Okay, surface area is this little formula at the bottom with a square root. So what the heck, let's look at that for a second. This section right here all comes from something called a slant height. So I'm going to put a little S there. So sometimes you'll see in a cone drawing that's given that this hypotenuse of this triangle is actually already given, and there's a number there for that S. But in ours, we have to calculate the hypotenuse by doing Pythagorean. Well, how do we do Pythagorean on that? We do 2 squared plus 4 squared equals this slant height squared. And I have to take the square root of both sides to get S. And so that's where that square root of 2 squared plus 4 squared comes in. It's us doing Pythagorean on it to get the slant height. Okay, anyways, another formula, just plug straight into it and you'll be fine. So pi times the radius of 2 times the square root of 2 squared plus, see how the height has a little arrow, 4 squared. Okay, so we're going to go to pi times 2 squared is 4. 4 squared is 16. And so 4 plus 16 is root 20. If I simplify root 20, I know that that's the square root of 4 times the square root of 5, or 2 root 5. That's that simplifying radicals we've been practicing. So I say equals 2 pi times 2 root 5, or 4 pi root 5. This is called my exact answer for surface area in kilometers squared. And I do just want to point out that the answers are down here, but the answers are given in decimal form only, but I still want these pi answers before you get to that decimal point, okay? Anyways, so we're going to go 4 pi root 5. And we get 28.10. So I'd say the cone with that little slant height makes this one a little bit more complicated. But again, still just a new formula that we're going to be trying out. So the next one, I have to squeeze volume in somewhere. Let's go find a spot. I think I'm going to write it down here for number 13. And then I'm not going to do number 15 since I'm out of space. Okay, so the volume equals, so see how we have the little formula right up here? It's that 1/3 one. Let me show you again where I just got that. because the volume of a cone is 1/3 that of the cylinder. This time my radius is 5 squared, and then our height is 10. 10 times 25 is going to be 250. And so that gives us 250 pi thirds as the exact answer. And then that's going to be 261.80. And this is in inches cubed. All right, there's my two answers for volume. Now I'm going to go do squeeze surface area in somewhere. This is the one with the slant height that needs Pythagorean. So I'm getting it from right here. It's pi radius squared times the slant height, where we use the Pythagorean. And again, this is for number 13 squished down here. So we've got pi times the radius of 5 squared times the square root of 5 squared plus, see the 10 right there? So that equals 25 pi square root of 25 plus 100, which is 125. We break down that radical. 125 is the square root of 25 times 3, or 5 root 3. Again, that's our simplify radical work from first semester. So 25 times 5 pi root 3. Sorry, guys. 125 is 25 times 5. Okay, I'm sort of getting squished here, so I feel like you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, so hang on. 125. This is how I broke it down. So a pair of 5s, a 5 comes out, and a 5 stays in. So I'm taking out, for the root 125, I'm taking out 5 root 5. And then 5 times 25 again makes 125 pi root 5. Putting that into a calculator for the decimal answer. I'm getting 878.10, and the units on this is meters squared. Okay, just because of how big my writing was and I used up all that space, it means I did not do number 17 and number 19. You just have number 13 and number 11 to reference as notes examples. And then I'd like you to go over to the right and do those evens. Finally, we're going to do the sphere. The sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed for the volume. So if they gave me an entire diameter of 6, that means my radius is 3. 3 cubed is 27. 4/3 times 27 gives me 36. And this is going to be miles cubed. And then putting that into a calculator, 113.10. Surface area is just 4 circles, 4 area of the circles. So 3 squared is 9. 9 times 4. Interesting, the surface area and volume are the same for this one. Hang on, let me write this in blue. Okay, volume for the next one. Again, you've got that formula right there. Radius is only 2. 2 cubed is 8. 8 times 4 is 32 thirds. And then put that in the calculator. $33.51. Surface area. Two squared is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Plug that into a calculator. 50.27. Finally, this is our last one. Again, there's the answers below there. Don't forget that those are there. If the hole diameter is 10, then my radius is just 5. 5 cubed is 125. 125 times 4 divide by 3. And that's going to be miles cubed. Putting that in a calculator gives us 523.60 miles cubed. I think by far the sphere is the easiest. What do you think? Okay, so notice first of all that this worksheet says volume only, but I'm doing both volume and surface area. So I'd like you now to go try the evens, volume and surface area, and then down here you can check your volume answers. So notice that it says here, number 25. See this right here and this right here? That's where you would be going to check your answers for volume only. Okay? Good luck. Try these new formulas. That's your work for today.